We land in Munich and both the daughters have showered us with gifts. Here is I'm flaunting my jacket given by Ria, and Rima's gift I've still not opened. I'm not sure what it is. She has carried all the way from Singapore. You know, I got this as Christmas gifts. Yes, the jacket too. Lovely, right? But there's a story behind them. One I'll come back to in a bit. It all happened out of nowhere. Our daughter, who lives around Boston, had just visited us in Singapore in July. So traveling again seemed unlikely. But as December approached, something didn't feel right. Being apart during the holidays? No way. So we came up with an idea. Why not meet halfway? Somewhere magical, somewhere lit up with Christmas lights and memories waiting to happen. Our journey began in Munich. We had arrived with no fixed plans, just the intention to catch up with an old friend whose company was long overdue. A few other reunions were loosely planned, but as it turned out, Munich had made plans for us. As if summoned by some nostalgic Christmas spirit, Marienplatz welcomed us with gentle snowflakes, soft, silent, and full of magic, followed by a lovely lunch with a warm couple. Street musicians played like they had secretly read my playlist. Everywhere we went, those familiar Christmas melodies followed. In the hotel lobby, along cobbled lanes, near the Christmas stalls, it felt as if the whole city was quietly serenading us. And then came a detour that turned into a delight. The BMW Museum. Just beside our hotel. Oh yes, I must have posed next to every car that morning. And yes, I did strike my best Elvis Presley pose beside that vintage BMW. It was always part of the plan. But Salzburg still managed to surprise me. I knew it was too close to Munich, but I didn't realize how easily accessible it was. One warm breakfast at the Munich Hauptbahnhof, a smooth Deutschbahn ride, and boom, you're in Salzburg, Austria's little jewel nestled by the Alps. We reached the hotel only to find the rooms weren't ready. A moment of pause, but the cheerful hotel manager stepped in with a twinkle in his eye and said, "Why don't you walk down to the brewery down the street for lunch?" Brewery? But we followed his advice and stumbled into Stigl Brewery, founded in 1492. Not part of the Mozart and Sound of Music brochure, but then again, the best travel memories never are. Inside, it was warmth, history, and golden beer. Yes, Salzburg had Mozart everywhere. Mozart chocolates, Mozart tea, Mozart wine, Mozart postcards, Mozart toilet paper, almost. It was funny, over the top, and oddly charming. And of course, there was the sound of music. It was fun watching the people trying out dance moves like Maria near the Pegasus fountain. Later in the day, we visited the Hohensalzburg fortress. From its historic ramparts, I looked out and saw a mountain in the distance. Majestic, silent, calling. I asked someone what it was, and they said Untersberg. And something in me whispered, "You must go." Next morning, our daughter Rima wasn't feeling well. The original plan to visit Hallstatt was dropped. Yet as she felt better by mid-morning, we decided to take a short ride instead. And so we went to Untersberg. What we found was beyond any brochure. A slow-moving cable car climbing into clouds, and then minus 15 degrees Celsius. Silence. I stood there, remembering the view from the fortress. The mountain that seemed unreachable now stood under my feet. Sometimes the journey that almost didn't happen become the ones you remember forever. We came back for more Mozart, more mulled wine, more Christmas magic. But what lingered was Untersberg. The snowfall fights, the biting cold, the joy frozen in 100 photos. If Salzburg was a symphony, Vienna was the opera, grand, glowing and full of drama. But let's rewind a little, because before the opera curtain lifted, there was the train. In Europe, train travel isn't just about getting from point A to B, it's royal. If Deutsche Bahn was huge, OBB was pure class. We sat in our first class compartment, watched the Austrian countryside glide past like a painting, and then walked over to the train cafe. Over coffee and conversations, I chatted with the train conductor, a soft-spoken man whose eyes lit up when he spoke of his dreams to visit Asia, especially Singapore. Then came Vienna. From horse-drawn carriages clip-clopping past charming cafes, Vienna Opera House to Schönbrunn Palace, glowing like it had wrapped itself in golden ribbons for Christmas. Vienna didn't just exist, it performed. We ran from Café Sacher to Café Central, chasing the Sachertorth dream, each one promising a slice of history, but the long queues made us rethink. Finally tired, we gave up the chase and stepped into a quiet cafe. No Mozart dined here, no Sigmund Freud, no Indira Gandhi or Queen Elizabeth. But we did, my family and I. Laughter, warmth, coffee and cake. Honestly, it was perfect. I remember walking from St. Stephen's Cathedral to the Hofburg Palace, the kind of walk that makes you fall in love with the city. Elegant cafes, exclusive eateries, perfectly dressed windows and wide pavements that invited you to slow down. There was something so unmistakably European about it all, dignified yet welcoming. As we left, I knew this wasn't goodbye. On our way to Prague, we met Adam, half my age, a stranger, a storyteller. A Czech rapper with many family stories. He just opened up as we chatted. Somewhere between train tracks and quiet confessions, upon my request, he began rapping right there.
Mám svůj gram, vlastně ani nevím sám tak, proto utíkám, nestíhám, nevnímám tebe, já jsem tam, ale vlastně nestíhám, tak. Máma mi říkala, že bych měl vysadit, máma je máma, já nechal jsem si porodit a nestačil se divit, co všechno si dá.
As we reached Prague, he looked at me with a mischievous smile. Come, I'll show you something most tourists never see. With my family watching in half smiles and raised brows, I followed him. And there it was, a quiet, majestic corner of the train station, untouched by camera clicks. He wanted me to see his Prague, not the one in guidebooks. We hugged goodbye, two unlikely friends, bonded over a moment money can't buy. The Prague Christmas market was barely 200 steps from our hotel, nestled beside the astronomical clock, but it felt like we had stepped into another world. Warm, alive, smelling of cinnamon, chimney cake, honeyed nuts, and roasted meats. This was no curated carnival. This was food from hearts, from hands, from heritage. A celebration of stories you could taste. The next morning, in true Singbonga fashion, while the city still wore its blanket of frost and my family snoozed peacefully, I slipped out to fetch breakfast. Yes, but also to feel the city breathe. But that morning, the highlight wasn't the iconic Charles Bridge or the palace, nor the ticking magic of the astronomical clock. When I went to pick up breakfast, the city was still half asleep after a long Christmas night. At a small cafe near the Kafka statue, the woman behind the counter moved with quiet purpose. Her eyes, her smile, they told me stories of Prague my heart understood, even if no words were spoken.
Hauptstadt, Singapore, hier Deutschland Hauptstadt Berlin. Da Singapore, Singapore. Okay.
Berlin wasn't about Christmas market. It was about history, memory, reflection. My daughter had insisted, we have come all the way to Germany, we must go to Berlin to see the Berlin Wall. A bit off track from the festive lanes of Christmas cheer we had been chasing, but I'm so glad we listened to her. German reunification remains one of the most defining moments of the 20th century. The wall, the brain drain that built it, and that iconic tear down this wall speech. All of it felt different, more alive when you're actually standing at Checkpoint Charlie. At the Berlin Wall Memorial, we weren't just visitors, we were feeling the weight of stories that needed to be felt. And then, something unexpected happened. I saw my daughters, usually breezing through museums, standing still. They were reading, absorbing, posters, names, dates, faces, and in that moment, they reminded me that even history has a heartbeat. And then, Anjappar. No schnitzel, no strudel, only masala. Even my pasta and pizza loving daughters looked like they had attained nirvana. Wolfing down butter naan, chicken 65, paneer butter masala and streaming masala chai. As for Brandenburg Gate, a photo and that's it. It didn't stir much, and that's okay. Not every landmark has to. But Tram 10, now that was different. No guide, no plan, just Berlin, raw and real. A girl lost in her music, an elderly woman laughing in German. And in that quiet communion, Berlin gave us something more lasting than any postcard or Christmas stall. It gave us perspective. And then it was back to Munich, where our flights home awaited. The next day was meant for rest and shopping, but our restless souls wanted one last brush with magic. So we dropped the shopping and boarded a packed train to Füssen, headed for that fairy tale Neuschwanstein Castle. In an overpacked train, I found myself doing something I never thought I would. Quietly laying down my handkerchief on the floor and sitting. People stared. My back and my butt thanked me. By the time we reached Füssen, my shoes had given up on me. A frantic search led to a new pair, but not in time to catch our connecting bus. The wind got colder, and for a moment so did our moods. But then we found a tiny Asian soup stall, tucked away, warm and welcoming. That bowl of soup, it healed more than our cold fingers. It restored our spirits. We took a short taxi ride and began walking along the snow-clad road towards the castle. My daughters gently refused the horse-drawn cart. No, Baba, they look too tired. Let's walk. And so we walked, slowly together, laughing, slipping, stopping. A cup of coffee, a roadside bonda, a snowball or two. Strangely, it wasn't the castle that stayed with us. It was that quiet shared walk in the cold. Trips never go exactly as planned. Trains will overflow, buses will be missed, shoes will fall apart. But if you keep your heart warm, the journey still finds a way to wrap you in magic. That day we found it. In the true Singbonga spirit, this journey was a celebration not just of places, but of people, their warmth, their quirks, their generosity. The ride to Munich airport was anything but quiet. Our driver zipped through the autobahn at a heart-thumping 160 kilometers per hour, clearly beyond the legal limit, but somehow symbolic of how fast these beautiful days had flown by. We didn't just travel. We slowed down, we laughed, we listened, we felt. And maybe that's all Christmas really asks of us. To show up with wonder, with kindness, with love. To meet not just the world, but also ourselves.